Okay, good morning. Here we go. Another session. The usual intentions, although I didn't state them this morning, but continuing to try and apply the idea of world favorability to every decision we make. Succeeding maybe a third of the time. Probably more consideration in sort of, let's say, less intuitive spots, but I would want to try my best to bring that question to everything at this point. Since we're training, we want to be conscious of everything we're doing. Still trying to find. I'm sort of getting a lot of info through CPS, and to bring every lesson that I learn to the table right away is unrealistic because I can barely remember all of it. So at some point, I'll need to pause the school there and try and integrate some of the ideas a little deeper. There's a lot of theory in the course, and then a lot of little metaphors that he teaches that are nice sort of memory mechanisms, but we need to integrate it a little more deeply than that. So I won't necessarily talk about like tiers of bluffing and class tiers and all that kind of stuff that he talks about because I just don't have it on. I don't have it at the forefront of my mind at the moment. This world favorability is sort of the key concept that I think we really need to groove before we can move on to some of the other things, because the other things help you place combos in your range, give you a sense of determining at what portion your range wants to do something based on that favorability factor. So I guess the main things that I've taken away so far that I'm using fairly often is this flop class, which is a hybrid with something that I also learned from the GTO was a tone bass guy. So, calm waters, choppy waters, and tsunami waters is like dry board, a neutral board, and a wet board. And then the world favorability relative to our range in the previous actions. So, and previous actions determine our range, obviously. So anyway, that's kind of where we're at. Session was not bad. Jet down a little bit. Looking at the hands that have significant action, so weeding out all my free flop and just standard flop C bets and fold to C bets. I was down quite a bit, down a stack and a quarter, stack and a third. So decisions wise, I think the session probably wasn't as well. I shouldn't say that. The results doesn't necessarily dictate the decisions. I think for the most part, first half of the session, we really kind of missed a lot of boards and had to bail out of hands, especially I think there was one 4-bet pot hand where I dropped out with less than a stack left, but I had just air at that point, I think ace high. So there was a few hands like that where we invested quite a bit pre and on the flop and then just found ourselves having to walk away. So anyway, we'll get into it here and just see what we think of things. Default queen 5 off. I almost feel like these kinds of really shitty hands to limpers, I should just raise and try and get the pot like ended right now because I don't know. I don't know what value there is in playing garbage hands post flop, but maybe it's okay. Maybe it gives us a little bit of practice that might be somewhat similar to heads up play, maybe just with a super wide range. Like we're basically playing our full range here. Well, we're not. We're playing the range that would be continuing that doesn't want to raise, obviously. So our it's basically our continue minus raises continuation plus all the garbage that is folded. So it's quite a wide capped useless range in a way. Depending on the flop, I guess. And this doesn't really do anything for us. Also, we're 3-way in this hand, so even more annoying. The minute anybody shows action, we're out of there, which we leave. So it's basically a nothing hand. We open king 10 off, get called from the big blind. Queen 6. It's fairly frequent c-bet, small size, but they're very polarized with all the queens that continue and pretty well nothing else, I guess, like overpairs maybe, but there aren't any overpairs here that they have in their range. Maybe some underpairs, big underpairs, and then overcards. So our hand is pretty thin, is bluffable, blocking king queen. So we put in a 1/3 bet, which is sort of our standard size for a board like this, and they call. And then when the 7 comes, doesn't change necessarily any of the net advantage. Better for their range though. Queen 7's there, and probably we both share the 7/6s. We share the other house sets, 6s and 7s. But they're still ahead of us with these Queen X hands. There's all kinds of suited Queen X. So if we did bet, we'd still need to bet small. And this hand really has degraded because any sort of draws it might have had now are pretty well done. So we check. 9 comes. Bluffing opportunity on the river if they don't bet, which they do, and we fold. But I could see for sure bluffing a straight, a jack 10. No, what would it be? There would be no straight that we made other than king 10. Sorry. Jack, queen, yeah, there's no jack 8. Just don't have in our range. Maybe this is a, no, jack 8 isn't there either. 10-8. 10-8, 10-8, 10-8 is the straight. God's sakes. Yeah, maybe it's difficult to rep like a slow played queen after c-betting the flop and not betting the turn. Just don't think the run out necessitates continuing here. And I think, although with the 10, maybe this is arguable. Obviously I don't see any raise here that makes any sense. And if they had checked to us, I mean, we don't have any showdown value, but likely, we might have very thin showdown value. This is where all of this work with tiers probably would be helpful. Just trying to figure out really what tier this hand is and go in there from there. 10 off. Maybe we just don't even open this. Actually, that's what it ends up being. That's not the hand, it's this one. Yeah, turn is a check. Let's look at the river node. First question would be, what do we do to a check? Where are our bluffs coming from? On here. King 10 has some small, so since we have a B60 and a B135, we need bluffs from for both of those. So the King 10 does, at some frequency, mix between checks and bluffing. Yeah, the hearts, especially to get rid of those backdoors, backdoor ace high hands that call the flop, clubs and diamonds and spades. And but even there, it's pure indifference bluff. The king jack is a little bit higher. King 8, I guess, because of the straight blocker. is a much better bluff for the bigger size. Same with King 5, different suits though. The hearts and the clubs. So the offsuit hearts and clubs, King 4 as well. King 10 off is what we have. So there are lots of indifferent and then slight bluffs in there. Our King 10 off is King 10 heart and diamond. Where are we? King 10 heart and diamond. Heart and diamond, this one. So actually it is a bluffing hand for just a single 0.1, 0.01 for a small bet. So that's if they had bet to us. Potentially could be usable. Very, very thin though. So cool recognizing that, but now we're not facing a check, we're facing a bet. But we don't use that at all to bluff with. Our bluffs come from not here, but here. Or that and that. So our bluffs come from a bunch of pocket pairs that interact with the straight. 6-5, which interacts with the straight. 7-6, 8-6, 8s, 8-7, 9-7, bottom pair, 9-8. Yeah, so it's basically everything around that straight is where we're bluff raising. Not everything, but some of it. 3s, 4s, the club version it looks like. The heart and club, so specific. 7-6 diamonds and hearts. Yeah, and 9-7 especially. The pair. Interesting. 10-7, Jack-7 are just calls as what, bluff catchers? Oh, the 7s, yeah, 9s pairs. This Ace-9, tiny bit of bluffing raise, bluff raise in there. Ace-9 here, bluff raise in there. So it's essentially, I guess, we are bluff raising with hands that block the set potential a little bit, and then these 8s that block the straight, 8 that blocks the straight, 9 blocks. Wait, 9-7 is 2 pair, but that's only 1. So even though it's a fairly low EV, better as a call, except for an all-in. Look at that weird all-in out of nowhere on 9-7 of hearts, even with 2 pair. So interesting. I wonder why. No heart, blocking, unblocking. Unblocking some other bluffs, maybe? Better bluffs? What is A2 betting? They're betting 82 there. Maybe. So let's see what they're folding. They bet that. We raise all in with 9-7, and they call with queens. Some queens are folding, I see. So the 9-7 is getting its folds from trip queens. Got it. Interesting. Doesn't seem likely somehow in the real world, but maybe the thing knows better than me. Anyway, I think for the sake of this, we have no. This is a good hand. And river facing check, small frequency, bluff bet for whatever it was. Is this B60? But otherwise, fold. Interesting 9-7 shoves. 7 of hearts shoves. Looks like to get folds from Queen X. Some. It's probably like a hard interaction there that the Queen X that don't block the. It's gonna be like a double blockery thing. That don't block a bluff with hearts. No, the bluff. We have the 9-7 of hearts. And that's the only one of those combos that does it. Then it's Queen Heart that we're looking to get folds from, and those would fold because they unblock something else. I don't think I have the brain power to go that far. Anyway, just a debate for something on another time. So we'll re-raise, they re-raise. We decide to call. I'm imagining GTO will say bad move, but I did that because either I shove, but I have position and I need to protect a check call range sometimes with big cards like this, or a bet, the 3-bet call range. Maybe we want to, and suited definitely want to go all the way. Small blind versus big blind. I don't know. Now that I see it, I'm imagining it's probably a bad move. So we'll defend with just your pair draws, get nothing. We could theoretically maybe raise here, although what do we rep? Ace-5 maybe? It's not really anything else we're 3-bet calling with that hits this board at all. And then they check, and they end up with King 2. So if we had shoved, they would have folded. We would have captured pretty well most of the pot, and we lost out on a bit of a win there. So that one. So we're looking for ace king off, expecting just to have a blunder there for not, yeah. We're just calling, just want to raise. I think we just need to find ourselves a little courage here and get going. Just get it in and let it play out and win the pot for a vast number of folds. People are not going to play a 5-bet shove, raise 3-bet, 4-bet, 5-bet shove necessarily that well. They'll either be just excessively tight in combos that we're blocking, or they'll call off maybe a little looser, and we'll have lots of equity. So I just have to make that adjustment and stop kind of being a big pussy when it comes to ace king. So let's actually punish ourselves and say blunder must shove ace king off. Have to start, get back to. It's an adjustment I made because of live where they just never 4-bet strong enough. They never have anything but aces and kings when you get 4-bet in the 1-3 world. So, 2-5 world, they should be a little better at this, but it's not necessarily truth. So I have to get back to shoving here with these hands. With ace king off. It's really the only one. Necessarily, we have to have that. We have to have those, though, a bluffing hand. Like we can't just shove with aces and kings and sometimes queens or ace king suited. We got to have a bluffing hand as well. 8-9 raise call, blocking 9-10, but we have a pair of eights, and I think we certainly could lead. C bet here. But if we get raised, we're sort of hating it because we have a nice pair to go with our 10, and we're blocking a bunch of 10s. So I think a check is probably okay. They check back. Now we'll put a little money in for a bit of overcard denial. Have a bit of value to those overcards. We have a bit of value to lesser pairs. And we get called, a jack comes, and then they check it. So yeah, so we got some money from the ace king, or the king queen. This is exactly the kind of hand we would want to charge to see more cards, and probably should have bet this river. Let's just, for the sake, these small blind, big blind work is stuff that I still, on my long list of study, need to get into a little better. Yeah, so river is still bet 25. There's no point in stopping on the jack. We could have gotten paid from worse. So a little bit of a river inaccuracy. Inconsistency. It's an inaccuracy, not an inconsistency. Missed a little value on river. Let's bet 33 on, and we happy to fold to raise and get value from worse many times. Inaccuracy. Okay. Ace queen. I'll 4-bet this hand and get called. Low board. So again, we miss. We check, they check. King comes. That's really good for our 4-bet range, and not so great for theirs. So I think we need to put in a bet. Can we bet? The question would be, what are we betting? We're out of position. We're the slightly more polar range. I think we have a range advantage. So this card, since it's so good for our range, it's not just a nut advantage, but a range advantage. I think we do a small bet. We got called, and the river flush comes in, even though we have a blocking flush card, and we check, and they bet all in. Obviously, it's clear fold. So what if they bet 1/3? What if they bet something a little bit more? I don't know. Yeah, say 1/3. Let's just look at this hand as an interesting thought exercise. Ace queen off. It's this here. So the solver wants a half pot bet. We don't want to back off, even though a pair came and a flush came in. Everything else is okay. Our size here is fine, but we definitely want a river bet here. So let's just make that quick note before we go into the alternate lines. River need to continue betting. River for B50 or so. We should have lots of flush completing combos that support this bet. And we have ace club X in hand, so we block nut flushes. Only thing we worry about is houses, and the B50 allows us to bail with flushes lots of the time. So the B50 bet with this bluff works really well with our flush completing cards. So then, supposing we did not face an all-in, first off, we would need to figure out where we're at in this node. So we really don't have a lot of checking. We mostly are betting here. If we check and they bet 35, we have ace queen. We just do a very thin call with a couple of combos as a bluff catcher. We would not raise. And we're raising our flushes. So this, I mean, that was kind of the main question, is if we have the flush completing club. Oh, here we go. Yes. Having that versus a small bet, we could shove. We certainly could shove tons of EV to capture there. So that's the instinct for a small bet on the river. In alt line facing B33, after check, we check raise all in with the ace club. And I don't know if that's the only one. So I think we've bet all the ace clubs earlier. Oh no, ace king will do the same. Ace king is interesting and different between calling and folding. Oh, because it has a pair as well. So that's the main line there. And then if we did put in a small bet and got shoved on, then it's an easy fold, obviously. Okay. So I think that is a nice lesson. We can use this ace club X to raise against small bets on the flush completing board. We are putting our stack in. This was the one where I was 56 bigs left. So that seems pretty dicey how easy it would be to call 4-1 bet or whatever it is. 50 into 75, 3-1-ish. But yeah. Anyway, as played, fine. This is a fine hand. And then the previous hand, 8-9. What did we decide on that? Missed a little value on river. Let's B33, and I think we said okay. We gave it an inaccuracy. It's fine. King's open, raise, call, two aces on board, check it. Somebody's got an ace. That's the one. Oh, maybe that's the one. Fold. Turns out, oh no, we don't ever know because he just shoves with his ace. Open queen jack, get tiny 3-bet, super weird little 3-bet. Could certainly look at 4-betting to that size. Decided to just call out of position. I think now, looking back, I'd prefer to raise, but we didn't. Just a dog's breakfast to the board, but then pick up a straight draw. Now we can put in a small bet. I don't think this is the right size if we're going to bluff now. We got to rep polar range. We shouldn't be betting a small. And they cap themselves by not betting the board. They should, if they have a flush or any flush draws or sets or anything, they should be putting money in the pot. They really don't have anything going here. They end up folding, which is fine. So the bet size is fine because it got the job done. But in theory, I think we end up getting called from a lot of pairs and other single diamond cards that we have a lot of equity against us, and this bluff can be a little more useful that way. Now, granted, we don't block any of those, so in that way, maybe not the best combo for this action. Let's find out. King, Jack. King Jack. Into the turn, that one. Yeah, so the machine is going to say fold. Rarely getting to the node, but I don't think it's not taking into account necessarily the size of this raise. Raise to 6. I guess it's sort of taken into account. Check. check. Good to put in a bet. Wants a bigger bet though. Oh, the side EV is good, so small bet is fine. And turns out to fold is fine. It's just this call that it didn't love. Pre to a normal 3-bet size, I'd fold. But because it was so small, indicated, figured, facing not good player, so felt like post might have edge. So that's fine. That's an exploitative move, and I think a good hand, even though the machine says fold. So we'll open queen 5, bluffing open, get called, hit nothing, checked back, draw flush draw, and now have delayed c-bet. Still into a polar range, so we need to keep it small. 2 comes, decided polar, wrapping a delayed c-bet with a 10, I suppose. I don't think they're going to believe it. And lo and behold, they fold. So I'm not even convinced. But maybe we slow play a 10 on the flop. Yeah, I guess we do. In fact, we almost always do. We have lots of 10s. We're so strong, we want them to catch up. Bet size is a bit debatable, but the EVs are pretty well equal. Certainly go bigger. And then the river comes a nothing, and we certainly have a good bet. So it was actually a really well played hand. It's good to look and see times when it's good to look and see when also when we're not sure of how we played it. Turns out we played it well, to give ourselves credit for that, obviously. Jacks will be a raise. Now it's a 4-bet raise, but too good a hand to call. We're not going to call, obviously, and too good a hand to fold. On a cusp though, 9s I'll fold, 10s sometimes, especially out of position. Jacks I think is just too strong to be folding, especially to somebody who looks a little bit excessive. Quite a bit of 3-betting here. I mean, 2 of 14, so it's not a ton of stats. Still a long way to go before these stats become super useful. But anyway, let's put her in a good 4-bet, and they call. So now we are close to SPR1. Not the best board for us. We give it a check. They also check. So I think now we are pretty well good to go. Rather than shoving and just getting called from best, I decide I will put a small bet in and then call basically a raise, because we have good overpair and they could be on a big draw. They would have bet their straight. They would have bet their sets. And so I think any shove in their world is a flush draws. I think even 2 pairs are going to bet that flop. Anything in position is going to bet that flop. So the only thing we get calls from are better over pairs like 9s, 10s, and queens, kings, and aces. But those will have kings and aces will re-raise. So we're really only losing the queens, I think, and we're beating 10s and 9s. I doubt 5s or 4s are going to keep going. And so I think this hand is probably well played. We do have other the bet doesn't like the bet on the flop or the river. Just wants bigger bet size, but a check. It wants a check on the turn. I see. Oh, that's where we are. It's on the turn. Does have a bet on the flop. Interesting. What does bet there that we have in range? Not jacks. Bigger over pairs, not the jacks. Ends with a draw. Only the spade tens. Nope, all the different tens. Oh, diamonds. This one, 61. No, those are betting too. Draws. Over pairs. Kings, queens, and aces. Want a lot of denial for that final color card. Ace high, both the draws likely. And then, yeah, it's the jacks that are not betting. It's like the only non-overcard hand that bet. Don't bet. Tens bet, mostly. Those guys bet all, and it's all draws after that. And then obviously our houses, we have them. We just don't have a lot of them, I don't think. I don't see myself often for betting with against one, like we're looking at an all in, right? So all of this stuff down in here is going to be so infrequent for me. 9, and maybe I need to get used to using those as 4 bets more. They just seem too thin, especially against 2 Rangers. But I could be wrong. So let's just make some quick notes in there. Solver has 8s, 7s, 9s in range, which I don't imagine for betting into two players, first of which is EP. Second one I'm not so worried about just because they're quite aggressive. And then the turn, this combo is the only overcard combo that doesn't put a big bet in on turn. So our size is wrong. Do we go with small? Yeah, so that theory is wrong. We have to purely polar. We are pricing in the draws too well. Yeah. So we're just getting ourselves into trouble by using this size. Make sure I understand that we are only polar betting and we bet out of position. Usually I keep my out of position bets to small. Polar betting is essentially a stack committing, and their shove over and over bet, a large bet, is just excessively strong. But I guess, like I said earlier, full of draws that we just have to close our eyes and hope don't hit. So the small bet doesn't really achieve anything. It's the big bet we want to use in that spot for all of the times when we're betting, and it turns out that this particular combo doesn't want to bet. Okay. So call that an inaccuracy. These 4 kind of standard open, small blind call for the versus the button. We have some gut shot action and a backdoor. somewhat raggedy board, really wide range. This guy's limping. This guy is cold calling probably a lot. Don't have anything in the small blind. Oh, wait, I don't know what the stats showing. P-pipping is not showing up properly. So I think we c-bet, and we c-bet B50. We get called. 7 comes. Doesn't really help anything, and doesn't necessarily hurt. It's just what's the composition of the small blinds range, right? Is it really wide? Probably, considering they're playing half a stack. So, but they've called, so they've condensed around this stuff. So they have some sort of flush draw. They have a pair. They have, I don't know, 7-8, 7-6. Will we get a fold if we go again? Is, I guess, the question. With basically just our gut shot. I decide to check and hope to hit, and they hit their pair. And we let it go. I don't know. I don't know whether this solve is going to be that helpful. It's 5. And that would be, oh no, is it ace 5? It's 4. Ace 4. It's this thing. It looks like we actually played it quite well. We do open. We do size to a B50 on that flop. We do check on that turn, although we could also overbet with our gut shot. And then when we face the overbet, we fold. So that's fine. It's a good hand. And I don't know if there's any need to look any deeper into that. Is there anything that we question? I think we're pretty clearly bluffing both streets when we do bet. And it looks like we're picking sizes that are right, and our frequencies are pretty well right. This B125, I think, is not sure I would be using that. I'm not really ever overbetting, and I need to start introducing that into my game a little bit more. Would probably go more here, 75. Queen 10, we'll defend, tight open, could 3-bet. Stacks are quite deep, so decide that it's too nice of a hand. King, Queen 7, Queen 6 suited, maybe we use those. Hit a top pair, we call. We call a bet. Another 2/3 bet. We're still top pair. I think we need to call again. We certainly could be value town by jacks, queens, kings, and aces, but we could also be seeing somebody betting flushes. So when we check and they check back, we expect to be beaten by ace 10. So, c'est la vie. Again, we certainly can check, but I don't feel like there's anything wrong with that play. If there's any alternative spots in there to play differently, let's see if we can find it. Call is fine. Raise is also fine. Check call on the flop is the only action. Check call the turn is the only action. Check the river is the only action. So, good hand. You saying best. Chess, if it's the perfect solver hand, you say best. Ace 10 off, not the most beautiful hand to be falling from the big blind, and again, trying to increase our big blind raises, but also being a little more conscious of what those are. Not really going to get any worse hands to fold, except for maybe 3s or 4s, 5s. No better aces are folding, worse aces are folding. So drawing our raises from more like king small hand, or small card, queen small card, jack small cards. King comes, backdoor flush. They 3-bet big, and we call, which I think is a little much. Small bet, yes. Big bet, I don't think that's the right play. We pick up a pair and a draw. So now, of course, we are continuing. Question would be, do we want to raise now? They've down bet, but they likely have like ace, king, king, queen, something like that. We could rep the house. No, not a house. We could rep the flush with the flush blocker. The pair, though, kind of puts us into this showdown value land. I'm not totally sure what tier this hand would be considered at this point. I think it's probably too much value to be bluffing with, and then too much value to fold at this point with the redraw. Redraw doesn't come, and they put another bet in for small, which just feels very like thin value. But it's not small. Well, yeah, it is small. It's 1/3. So in game, I thought, should we raise now? Is there a point to raising? We could raise a small amount and get kings to fold. 6, a straight came as well, and we called from the big blind, so we could easily have 9-7 for sure as well. So we could actually go 6 + 6 is 12, 30. We could easily raise up to like 20. And if we get reshoved, we just fold happily. If we get called, we have a tiny bit of showdown, but likely it's not going to work. And calling here, I don't think there's any value here in calling either. So I think this might actually be, it is either a raise or fold spot, and for sure, I'm sure there's some frequency of folds, which we do, but there's also some frequency of raises here. It's going to be my guess. Let's see if I'm right. So I'm not sure where else we pull bluffs from on this particular hand. Yeah, so it's probably, oh, thank you. Local call. There's nothing on this node at the end here, interestingly enough. Check, bet, fold. So we have to go to the node or the solve. Not sure why that doesn't come through. Ace 10, there is raises with those aces, but higher value calls. Much higher value just to call. Wonder why we would call there. What are they betting for that amount that we beat? Are they betting for 28? Nothing. They're not actually doing this bet. They're polarized bet only. So that's part of the problem, is the solve doesn't have. I'd have to do a custom solve with a small bet there. But if we're still betting, we're still calling with ace 10 on our side, they have to be betting. It looks like they're betting 3s, 4s, 5s. 5s is I think is a set. Yeah. So actually go into here. This equity. So they have 3s. They have better aces than ours, but just open aces. So the 10 actually beats those two. And they have both. Oh, there's no bets there. There is bets here, B50 at indifferently. So there is enough bluffs that they're making. The question would then become, are they making this bluff with this size? And I would say unlikely. I think this is almost always a king. We have no stats on the person, so this is a fine fold. This is good, but let's say river can also consider raising this hand versus this size. In solve, it's a call, assuming we think it's a call versus a bigger bet. Assuming we think they have ace queen off, ace jack off, ace two, I think it was, suited threes in bluffing, for bluffing. But in this spot to this size, it's either raise or fold. Would have to custom sim to see if there are raises. Assuming small bet is concentrated around King X. I think that analysis is right. Ace 9 will raise. Get called by 2, including a small blind. Terrible small blind call. So bad player. Let's. Oh, that was a limp out there, so that's probably okay. Don't really hit the board well. They're gonna have tons of kings, queens, and jacks to call us with. I could certainly go for it for a slightly bigger size, but I just feel like there's so many calls with medium Broadway cards, like tons of two pairs, even pretty well any pair is going to call. So on some, I decided a delayed C bet would be a better card to bet, assuming we either get a 10 or another club comes, preferably a small club that doesn't necessarily give a two pair hand more strength, or one pair hand, two pair. And then when the 8 comes, it's just so. This is like the tsunami board, I guess, to a certain extent. Definitely more than neutral. We don't have a lot of bluffs. We don't have a lot of fold equity, so we need to be decreasing our bluffing frequency and facing a big bet. We just gotta let her go. There's nothing here for us other than hitting a 10, and I don't see any value in raising, especially against a big bet. 10-8, standard open, get called by the blinds. We get a pair. We have a little bit of denial. We want to get those couple, at least one of the ranges out that might have a spade. A small spade to a medium spade. So I think we could certainly argue ourselves into putting a bit of money in just to see if we can get one fold. And these mono boards, when we're holding a top pair and no other kind of drawing hand, especially multi-way, I don't know, man. It just sort of makes me wonder, right? Like, should we be trying to set up a little bit of denial with versus two ranges, neither one of which shows any sort of aggressive tendencies? Yeah, I kind of feel like maybe a bet there is probably the right thing to do. When they bet, we're going to call with the top pair, obviously, and then we get checked back, and the 8-6 two pair does end up winning. I think, let's just say, I think it's fine in the end. Fine to check, but also there might be some denial needs versus two weak ranges to get folds from very small spades. Question mark? It's a bit of a question mark, this one. We'll just say it's an okay hand. We've been doing these. That one was good. That one, what did we say on that one? That was good, okay. 10-8 fours, we open, we get called from the somebody blind, big blind. Jack 10-5. Not a great board for us necessarily, probably better for them. Although we do have all the nutted hands. I don't know whether we want to nut out with the fours. There's overcards. There's aces with queen, with heart, diamonds, and jacks that'll call. There's a lot of their range that's going to call, and we're investing with very little. This is what Buddy would call probably a frail hand. He really doesn't want to see much more investment. Probably is not going to win a showdown. Yeah, I really don't know what the best way to play this spot is. Facing the bet, I think we just fold. I, again, think there's very little showdown value here. And I don't think also that there's much value in using it as a bluff on that spot. But I could be wrong. I could be wrong. This will be a learning lesson because I really actually don't know how to play this hand. Fours here. Yeah, so we played it well. Fine. Check. It does have some bets though. So we certainly can bet small, we can bet big, we can bet little, middle. This is a real mix spot, which is why it's a little confusing. Because it is so chaotic, and those chaotic spots are the most mixy. It's a lot of different things that are going to happen. So a check is totally fine, but a bet is also exactly fine, same EV. All of it is low. We'll give ourselves an okay for betting it or for checking it, and we're of course going to fold the turn. I don't know. I'd be curious to see what these kinds of combos end up doing in a different circumstance. Say like if checked to us, does a fours now start betting us a check? Fours do start betting with hearts. Yeah, a little bit with hearts. Still very indifferent. I mean, they're basically running all the EVs are the same. And in this portion of our hand, we are down here. So it's all of this stuff. Ace 9, king queen, ace. Yeah, it's just these sorts of things. Like, what do you do with those? It's basically the same as a straight draw in terms of EV. Fours, king 6. A heart, yeah, a heart. So the same as, it's actually, that's interesting. So I would be very easily betting with king queen off to a check. I would be very easily betting king 6 hearts to a check. But I would not be easily betting fours, even though they're the same EV. Oh, there's an equity chart. Never mind. Fours are not the same EV. Fours have an EV of these are still just checks. So yeah, so they are these frail hands, whereas the king queen, it's bets because its EV is so much higher. This is we have to actually go strategy plus EV 4, and then king queen is higher at 1.4, about double the EV. Even though their equities are the same, there's double the EV involved in betting there. Same here, significantly more EV here. But with this, we just don't have as much, but it still has a little. That's, I guess, just worthy of protecting with a check. Okay, on turn, can use king, queen, and flush draws, which have more EQR than the fours. Bet. I closed it off. Strategy EQR 37% EQR, whereas that says the same. 37. And 6 actually has less. 37, 37, 37 across the board. You'd think that the king queen is not in range because we bet it on the flop. All right. Okay. Good. 5 open, pretty loose open. I bet this at some major frequency, but we just have nothing at this point. And then we pick up still pretty well nothing, but we do have a garbage hand that is check, 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 check to the river. Let's just say that our range now is just so much stronger, especially with this paired card that they don't bet on the river. I'm going to say that the fact that we have lots of tens that are happy not to bet the flop and turn, now we can rep with a polar bet. And I want to get that side